I want to welcome everybody today to this webinar and called Unlocking the Secrets of a Tax-Effective Retirement. And one of the things that I will say too is that I noticed that there's a few younger people on today, and there's some things here that are definitely worthwhile for younger people as well. But the main reason that this was important to me to bring this to people's attention is that when it comes time to, when we talk about investing, either pre-retirement or post-retirement, it's really important to be aware of the impact that taxes, fees, and losses can have on your investments. And taxes for most people is your largest expense in a year, and so therefore taxes are certainly very important to discuss. What we'll also talk about maybe in another webinar or something at another forum is the topic of losses and fees. So today it's mainly about tax, as well as I'll be sharing the 7 golden rules of retirement, what I consider 7 golden rules of retirement. So without ado here, I'm going to bring up my presentation, and I'm going to just be a second here. And I had to do a little bit of maneuvering when I was on here this morning, practicing, because I've got 2 different screens, and so there is a way to switch it, and I'm not finding it right now, but maybe I will as we go. So in terms of the unlocking the secrets of tax-effective retirement, obviously there's different tax strategies that we can look at. This one I consider a double-edged tax strategy, and there's Murphy with a little bit of double vision. So just thought I'd start off my first joke. I'm a terrible joke teller. So in terms of this double-edged tax strategy, what I wanted to bring to the attention is that many Canadians are very unaware of a couple of things. First is that RSPs, it's a bit of a misconception that RSPs are the main long-term retirement savings. And so in terms of what to save in, for many people, a more appropriate savings vehicle would be a tax-free savings account. So the other thing is that many Canadians who retire tend to wait before they start using their RSPs or convert them to a RIF and start payments, because they just hate the idea of paying tax. Now, in terms of this step 1 of this strategy, depending on marginal tax rates or when marginal tax rates drop, taking earlier and larger RSP or RIF withdrawals is very strategic, because when it comes down to marginal tax rates, when somebody fully understands the benefits of taking advantage of marginal tax rates, that's when things can really look good. So in terms of taking RSP or RIF withdrawals, for many Canadians, it's counterintuitive. Why would I take a redemption or start selling my RSPs or my RIFs when I don't need the money? Well, there is a very good reason to start doing it sooner than later, and that's because of tax. So if you think of in Canada, a lot of the average Canadian investor, especially when they retire, are typically not over the 37-38% marginal tax bracket, especially if they can split with a spouse. And that translates basically anything under about $98,000 a year, and per person or per person. So for those people that are over $98,000 a year, you do have a jump in your marginal tax rate, but that ugly 54% number, which is what Nova Scotians have as the highest marginal tax rate, doesn't kick in till you're into the 200,000s again per person. So for many people that I see in retirement per person, I don't often see a retirement income over $100,000 a year. It's not average, let's just say. It certainly happens. It's not common. So if you understand the marginal tax rates, and when I'm talking about the marginal tax rates, I'm talking about the combined marginal tax rate of federal and provincial, it can be very simple, a simple strategy to take advantage of a lower marginal tax rate, and therefore you have benefits of paying less tax over the long term. So paying less taxes in your state, paying less taxes if tax rates actually go up in later life, and that can happen if Canada does raise income tax rates. That's one issue. Also, if there's two spouses and you're splitting income, and one spouse dies, leaving everything to the other spouse, no more income splitting. So one of the concerns, though, that we do look at is OAS clawback, but I'm not going to talk about that in this limited time. And lastly, T4 income is recognized by Department of Health when a long-term care assessment is conducted. So when somebody needs long-term care, they're looking at T4 sources, basically. So the more that's in RIFs, the more that you're going to have to pay, simply stated. Again, I apologize for my slides. I have my other screen here. I have a nice big slide, but I just having trouble getting it onto the slide that you're seeing. So so step 2 of this strategy is, once you've taken money out of the RSP or the RIF, what do you do with it? Well, you find a tax sheltered alternative, such as tax-free savings accounts and cash value life insurance plans. Now, some clients do maximize their tax-free contributions, but just for those people that don't know, your maximum tax-free savings account accumulated contribution is $75,500 for 2021. So if there's two partners, that means approximately $151,000 between you if you haven't used all that contribution room. So that is definitely one place to put some of that money each year. And of course, that contribution room continues to grow each year in the future. Secondly, tax-free savings accounts have some obviously tax efficiency. Anything that grows inside of the tax-free savings account, whether it's dividends, capital gains, interest, is growing in a tax shelter basis. And that's powerful, because compound interest is something that I preach on a regular basis. And I also point out that disrupted compound interest can be detrimental. Lastly, tax-free savings accounts can be short-term savings accounts and long-term savings accounts. Plus, one person can have more than one tax-free savings account. So there's quite a bit of flexibility there. Secondly, cash value life insurance plans, which are one of Canada's oldest savings plans. They've been around for over 150 years. And they're a wonderful fixed, what we call a fixed income alternative. Now, for those people that are currently investing in things like bonds or deposits or mutual funds or segregated funds that have bonds or what we call fixed income or a balanced fund, fixed income is not doing well right now because of where interest rates are. And cash value life insurance plans are a great alternative as well, because a cash value life insurance plan is tax sheltered growth. It can do very well over time. You can own a cash value life insurance plan set up as a single or joint last to die if there are two people. The other big advantage of these versus tax-free savings accounts and other things is that you can actually borrow against them. So for some of you have heard this before, that if a person owns a rental property and is in retirement now and is faced with the objective of getting money out of their property, they can either borrow against the property or they can sell the property. In the event, same thing with life insurance, you can either take it out, you can sell it completely and take all the cash, or you can leave it alone, let it continue to compound and do what's called a policy loan, borrow against the equity in it, and thereby not disrupting the compound interest. Very powerful. Of course, life insurance does pay a death benefit as well, and those are tax-free. Those benefits bypass probate, so of course no probate fees, and it's an efficient wealth transfer as well. Cash values, once dividends are declared each year into these plans, cash values can't go backwards. So unlike variable investments like balanced funds, fixed income funds, they fluctuate in value, and they certainly can have downturns and sustained downturns. And yeah, so again, I just for time purposes, I'm not going to spend too much more time, but again, two wonderful tax sheltered alternatives: tax-free savings accounts and cash value life insurance. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and I'm just going to ask if there's any questions at this point in time. Okay, I'm just opening up my chat screen. There's just a couple comments there, but no. So if nobody has any questions at this time, I'll continue.
Doug, I've got one question. Maybe you're going to cover this going forward in a minute, but how exactly do you get money out of a cash value life insurance plan?
Yeah, very good question. So a life insurance policy, a cash value life insurance policy, is synonymous with either a whole life insurance policy or a universal life insurance policy, unlike what they refer to as term insurance. When you have a cash value life insurance policy, such as a whole life insurance policy, you can either contact your advisor, like me, or you can go directly to your life insurance company and request a withdrawal, or you can request a policy loan, or you can also, if it's substantial cash value, you can actually go to your own bank and borrow against the equity or the cash value inside the life insurance plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. So I will go back to sharing unless there's any other questions at this point. Great. So back to the presentation, and that was what I refer to as this double-edged tax strategy. One of the things I can do for you as well is, if you're interested in implementing this strategy, if you're not a client or we just haven't implemented it yet, I can actually give you a rough estimate of how much tax savings we're talking about. So it's kind of cool. Next, the 7 golden rules of retirement. So in terms of time, we only have about 15 more minutes, but I'm hoping that you'll get some ideas here that will be helpful going forward. But again, there are a couple of articles that are available that I can send you. I can send you this presentation We're going to be able to upload the recorded presentation as well that you can also access. So there will be some more information if you need it afterwards. So the first golden rule is communication. I have a little story here, not so much a story about it, but an incident that occurred years ago with a client of mine who, unbeknownst to me, had an ex-spouse. And when that person died at that time, and I'm not 100% sure if this still exists in Nova Scotia, but because he didn't change his will, his RSP proceeds went to his ex-spouse. So his current spouse was kind of paddling without a paddle, or in a boat without the paddle, whatever the expression might be. This is I think this is still a bit of a problem area in Nova Scotia, and unfortunately, only about half of Canadians have a will. And my guess is that probably more than half of those people that have a will don't have an updated will. So if it's common that people will have more than one partner in their lifetime, this is really super important for estate planning purposes. So communicating with your financial planner and lawyer about those kinds of things is important. For those people that do have a spouse or partner, it's really super important to have some kind of either conversation or facilitated conversation about what each other's goals are for their retirement, because they do differ. And unless you're talking about it, and you might assume that your partner has the same goals, but not necessarily. I'm not going to get into the business side of it, but this, in terms of retirement and succession planning for a business owner, this is really important as well. Second golden rule, diversified investments. A lot of Canadians have most of their investments in Canada, and they feel comfortable with that. They feel that, you know, we've got a strong, some strong companies, including our banks and our insurance companies, and they feel that it's a little bit out of their comfort zone by investing outside of Canada. But in fact, investing outside of Canada does make a lot of sense. So investing outside of Canada would be a geographical diversification. Investing in different categories of investments, such as stocks, bonds, real estate, other types of fixed income, is important. Also, size. Some people like to buy, you know, the big blue chip stocks or the big blue chip stock funds. Mutual funds or segregated funds, but actually, there's a lot of money to be made in smaller companies too. So, yeah. And lastly, guaranteed investments versus non-guaranteed investments. There are some fairly interesting guaranteed investments available to Canadians, and if you have an interest in that, let me know. Lastly, when we talk about diversified investments, it's also important to remember that, is it important for you when you retire to have a big nest egg? Or is it more important to have big income sources? Quick example there is that if you think about an RSP that converts to a RIF, a Registered Retirement Income Fund, we set up a systematic, usually monthly payment to your bank account. However, many people don't know or are unaware of the option of an annuity. So if you don't have a pension plan, an annuity can be a great complement to your RIFs. So that's why I talk about here, is income more important or the net worth more important? And I think a lot of people, as they age, they want to it becomes more and more important that they have a good source, a good mix of income sources. And that brings me to the number 3 here. how do your retirement income sources match your retirement expenses? A very easy way of maneuvering with this is to think about your fixed expenses matching up with a fixed income source. So again, there are pensionable people and non-pension retirees. For those people that are that have a pension, a lifetime defined benefit plan, that coupled with a CPP and OAS could easily cover your fixed income expenses. For those people that don't have a pension plan, though, it can be very strategic to align what fixed income sources you do have with your fixed expenses. So, and like I said a few minutes ago, there are some guaranteed plans out there and some guaranteed income plans out there that many Canadians aren't aware of. So back to taxes here again, we talked about that double-edged strategy. It has another name, an RSP or a RIF meltdown. Income splitting is a very important tax strategy with people that are not just over 65. It can happen even if one spouse is under 65, but generally over 65, income splitting is available to you. Tax efficient plans like tax-free savings accounts, the life insurance plans. The other thing is too is that I mentioned it, you haven't seen a tax accountant or what we call a tax specialist, CPA. That can be beneficial too. So I work with and network with about 3 different tax accountants, so that if I have a question or an issue that's out of my realm, I'll consult with somebody else, or I'll refer that person to a client. So number 5 is cash flow and bad debt. Big issues here. So cash flow, or those monthly expenses, some people are good at managing monthly expenses and some people aren't. But one of the things that you need to be very careful of is if you don't have a pension plan, like a defined benefit pension plan, managing your monthly expenses are important, and making sure that you have cash flow or income sources that are going to outlive you, I guess, as opposed to you outliving your savings and your income sources. But there is many Canadians well over age 60 that still have not only debt but bad debt, and this really can eat away the monthly cash flow. So for those people that have any questions about that, I can help you afterwards. And lastly, I'll just mention too that there's tax deductible debt, and there's also debt that is good debt. And one of the things that some Canadians are doing is they're utilizing home equity loans. And a home equity loan can be another source of retirement income. And if you want to stay in your home and you have a lot of equity in your home, that is another way of adding to your retirement income sources. 6 is what I call transitions. Transitions is extremely important because this is where so many Canadians struggle. I've seen it so many times that people who retire end up going back to work because they're bored or they need money. Other people who semi-retire and then fully retire and then end up doing something else. Business owners who don't set up a succession plan properly. Transitioning, another big one is a health plan. A lot of Canadians wait until the very end before they start looking for a health plan, and then it can be too late, because if you're not insurable, a health insurance company doesn't want to insure you. Some people are lucky that their group health plan has a continuity or continuous plan for retirees, but that's not that common, especially for non-governmental plans. So for-profit companies don't often have that option. So there are some things that can mitigate risk, and I can help there. Certainly in terms of other transitions, though, estate planning is a huge one. And this year, the last probably, I don't know how long it's been, 12 months probably. I've been working with clients who are involved with estates and clients who've just recently died. And there is a lot that goes on there. And if you're a named executor, or if you have an executor you're not 100% sure of is up to the task, then it's a good idea to look at making a change. And lastly, I think lifelong learning is important. I've done a lot of reading and a lot of research over the years on retirement planning, and I find that those people that continue to learn, to continue to be intellectually active, are healthier. And again, I don't have a particular stat on that, although I was researching stats on that, and I'm sure I've seen stats on that, but I'm pretty comfortable in saying that those people who not just are physically active in retirement, but are mentally active, I think are generally happier, and they have a more successful retirement. Lastly, the seventh one here, Murphy's looking out our window. He's probably looking for Lucy the cat that is always walking around. But the non-financial side of retirement planning is often overlooked. And so I talked about physical and mental health. I talked about activity, both physical and intellectual activity. But there are other non-financial things at play here, such as, where you're going to live, how you're going to live. I have clients who have in-laws or parents living with them. I've seen different arrangements in terms of people that retire. But in terms of the non-financial side of retirement planning, I think it's really important. And again, a conversation with me can be helpful, or somebody else outside your bubble, let's just say, but it can be helpful. So that is it. Believe it or not, I have my big clock right over my screen here, so I've been watching the time, and I do have approximately 12:30. I want to thank everybody for attending. I know it was very short, but I wanted, for the purposes of an online presentation, to keep it short. Reach out for a conversation. Email me, email Kyra, and set up a chat. Again, it might be a one issue thing, or it might be a general kind of issue. It might be something that you saw today that you have more questions with, but it can be helpful. And also too, is that for those people that are interested in this presentation, the recorded seminar, or just even the slides, I also have a couple of articles too that I was going to send out for those people that are interested. And one of the articles is about long-term care. And I think everybody knows that our little province is going to have some challenges in the future with long-term care and healthcare in general. But there are some pretty alarming trends that are being predicted, or that people are predicting some alarming trends. So there are some things, again, to mitigate that risk, and I'd be happy to help you with that. Does anybody have any questions? Any other questions? So for those people that attended, I really am happy to have you here today. We had a decent group.
Ann Horn, can you come see Deanna, please?
Sorry?
Doug?
Yeah.
This is Nancy Morrison.
Sure.
Just a question. I know, what term insurance is, but just remind me, I've read this in the past, but remind me, what's the difference between universal insurance and whole life insurance?
Great question. Universal life insurance was developed probably 40 years ago as another avenue for what's called permanent life insurance. Whole life insurance has been around a long time, but universal life insurance used to be described almost like a self-directed RSP where you control the investment. Whole life insurance, you don't have any control over the investment and the returns. But universal life insurance, Nancy, basically has two parts to it. It has what's called a term 100 component. So in other words, whether you live to 100 or even over 100, that insurance cost never changes. But the other side of that universal life insurance has an investment account, and you control or you decide on how you want to invest it, whether you want to invest it in the markets or deposits or whatever. So you basically, universal life insurance allows you to control the investments. And again, if you go with something variable like a stock index or something like that, it's going to fluctuate. The whole life insurance, though, once the dividends are declared each year, that it can't go back, it can't go down in price. So I believe whole life insurance is the better route, but everybody's a little bit different.
So I always thought of, life insurance as some money to give to your beneficiaries when you die.
Yeah.
But you're making me think of it as in a different sense, because if you pay for the insurance, then the money that comes out of that, as you say, doesn't have to go through probate.
Right.
And would be immediately accessible
Absolutely.
to, well, pay expenses or whatever,
Yeah.
or to give to a family member, or it would even, I suppose you could even have it, could you, that it would allow the go into your bank account, and so it would allow the people managing the estate to have cash to deal with things?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's an example. If you and your spouse set up a life insurance plan, whether it was a single life plan or what we call a joint plan, like a joint last to die plan between the two of you, one person dies, leaving the last person, a death benefit is paid out after the second person dies. If the second person, though, didn't name a beneficiary or beneficiaries, it does go to your estate.
Right, you have to name a beneficiary.
Yeah, you definitely, I think it's usually a good idea to name a beneficiary, but there are definitely people that just let it go to the estate. One thing, though, that the executor knows is those life insurance proceeds can be dispersed when the executor sees fit. So the executor may decide, though, to hold on to the proceeds because they're not sure of some pending taxes or expenses. But yeah, it's usually a good idea to name beneficiary. It bypasses probate, and it usually can be dispersed to the named beneficiary very quickly. They say 5 to 7 business days, and it sometimes is that case as long as you have the death certificate and the policy,
In hand.
whether you get it from the insurance company or you have it.
This is a question that maybe I should ask a tax accountant, but I was just thinking of, if you had a property, like a second property, not your main house, and if you left that to, a family member, would they have to pay taxes on it just like it had been sold?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good question too. Yes, and essentially a capital gains tax would be applied if there's a capital gain. So, say you were the executor and for a person, and so the assets included some land or a property, an outside property, not where they lived, then you would have to prove to CRA what the capital gain is or capital loss was. And so knowing the the cost of the property can be very difficult in some cases, especially if it was a long time asset. And also in terms of adding up any costs. So essentially an accountant will want to bring the adjusted, what we call the adjusted cost base, to as high as possible, legally possible, and thereby reducing the capital gain, and half the capital gain is taxable.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, some things to think about as we get older.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, for people that again are have another question that they want to ask in private, email me anytime or email me. You can still put it in the chat, although I'm going to close that off fairly soon. And for those people that would like any further information, such as the recording or the slides or the articles, let me know.
Yeah, if you have some articles that you were going to email around, I'd be happy to receive
especially
those.
Nancy, I think you'd probably like this one article, especially on the long-term care and some of the. It's a fairly recent article of the Globe and Mail and quite relevant, I think, for anybody that's retiring.
Also, if you have some information on the, life insurance as a tax saving kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what kind of costs you'd be talking about, say monthly, that would be useful.
Yeah, and just one last note that I didn't really elaborate on was that, for those people that are tax smart and getting rid of tax inefficient plans like RSPs and RIFs first. For those people that are doing that, things like tax-free savings accounts and cash values in the life insurance plans logically are not going to be used until later.
Right.
Life insurance, whole life insurance, typically is much more interesting letting it build after a few years. There's cash value right in year one, but in terms of letting that thing compound and grow, that's nice to start using at a later date. And also for those people that have, whether they have universal life insurance or whole life insurance, whatever is not used in the cash, a lot of that gets added to the death benefit. So you have what's called a growing death benefit, and that's tax-free as well.
Tax-free is a nice word.
I love tax-free.
Thanks very much, Doug. Very interesting.
You're welcome. All right. Well, I'll close off. I thank everybody for attending, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Bye.